Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Bronich of statewide news service jbiztechphilly.com. And now, as you can see, he's a columnist for the Jewish Press.
Yes, it's a great newspaper. I have a monthly column, but it's a weekly newspaper that targets the Orthodox Jewish community across the country. And I am honored to be given the privilege to write a column there for them. It's called Albany Beat, and it talks about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. So speaking of government, we have a state assemblyman with us, all the way from downtown Schaghticoke in Rensselaer County.
Yeah.
Assemblyman Steve McLaughlin, welcome back to the Jewish View. You've been here before, so
great to be
coming.
here. Great to be here.
So, did you fly in? I know you're a pilot. Maybe you can, one of those drones, they're saying your passenger drones, you can just drop right in,
That's
maybe.
true. I did fly about 2 weeks ago. I flew a business jet out to Buffalo, and I hadn't flown in a little while, so that was a lot of fun.
You still fly a lot? I mean, or
I don't
just once
fly
in a while?
a lot, but I'm still a pilot, so I wanted to shake the rust off a little bit. And a friend of mine has a business jet, so I said, hey, if you ever have a day trip out and back, I don't have time to go for 2 or 3 days, but out and back would be great. I could have some fun flying. So I figured I would just help out the pilot and work the radios, but he said, well, you're flying, you got it. So I flew out and back. It was great. It was like I had never left the flight deck. I felt great. So I guess it never leaves you, like riding a bike,
Yeah,
But of
only
all
at Mach 0.8.
But of all places for you to have to go to was Buffalo, because there with Andrew, the governor, who's one of your closest friends. I mean, having the Buffalo Billions and taking the lieutenant governors from Buffalo. I mean, this is like like enemy territory for you almost.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't feel that way, but maybe they did if they'd known I was arriving in town.
So speaking of which, I think that's on everyone's mind these days is whether you're going to run for Congress to replace Chris Gibson. It's a year and a half away, thereabouts. I mean, you still takes a lot of money for you to run for Congress. It's a big district. But, is your heart in it? Are you, are you flying high, like with,
Yeah, my heart is in it. And I said yesterday to one of the news reporters, I said, I'm not sure if Washington's ready for me, but I think I'm ready for Washington. And, my heart is in it. And every day, in fact, today I had a few meetings about it. Yeah. And it is a daily, moment-to-moment thought on my mind. So I'm still weighing it. But
why?
Well, I'll tell you why. As you mentioned, it takes an enormous amount of resources. So you have to make sure that before you launch that there is a path to raise those resources. And, that's the part of this business of politics that I really don't like, is the raising of the money. There's far too much money. Everybody says that, but it's the truth. I mean, this will be a $2 to $3 million race just on the Republican side. The Democrats will throw that much money at it as well. So it will be one of the premier, highest profile races, not just in New York State, but in the entire country. It'll be a top 10 congressional race. That being said, I think I'm the best person to run on the Republican ticket. So I'm trying to weigh that out with what's best for my family, what's best for my constituents. I'm pretty far down that list about what's best for me, but you do think about a lot of scenarios and a lot of things. So I think still leaning really toward it, and we'll make a final decision probably within the next, I would say, month or two. I know that may be a little later than some people want.
Because you got to fish or cut bait at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
There could be a primary, though, amongst the Republicans?
There absolutely will be.
There absolutely will be.
It's just a question of how crowded that field is. There could be as many as 5 people in that field. And honestly, I think the more crowded the field, the better that is for me. In a one-on-one situation, anything can happen in a primary, one guy against one-on-one. But with a crowded field, I think my profile is bigger than any of the other candidates that have either talked about it or announced. I think my social media profile is by far the biggest of anybody out there. It's probably one of the biggest in state politics. And I think I'm pretty well known. Certainly throughout my district, I'm extremely well known. And then carrying that forward out into the New York 19, I'm pretty well known throughout that district. I'm not going to be as well known as Congressman Gibson because he's been there for 6 years. And boy, I wish he was staying. I tried to talk Chris out of not, and I was hoping he'd run one more time, but I think he has other goals and dreams in mind, and he made his decision, and God bless, he's going to go forward with that. But he's just been a fantastic congressman.
Now, when you say it takes $2 to $3 million, is that including a primary and a general, or is it more like $5 million for the primary and the general combined?
No, I think the $2 to $3 million about covers everything. I don't personally think a primary will be $1 million primary, and if it is, quite frankly, I don't know that any candidate is going to be able to raise $1 million for a primary. But the primary is still going to be, it could easily be $100,000 to $300,000 for a primary. And primaries, as you know, Mark, they're all about getting your base out. It's all about those people that are members of the party, that they're 4 out of 4. They never miss an election. Primary, school board, whatever it is, they're there.
They're called prime
vote.
voters.
Prime voters, and that's obviously who everybody targets. And then you try to get some non-prime voters to show up, but that's difficult to do, as witnessed just by last week's primaries. The turnout was dismally low.
Well, look what happened in the city of Troy. 5 votes separated one candidate or another after the election.
Right.
Now it grew to 50, but that's still a small vote margin of victory for the person who won. I mean, that's
Quite
for
small.
the mayor of Troy.
Yeah, quite small for the Democrat nod. I was actually surprised that the lead grew by that much with just some absentees.
It usually does. I mean, usually whoever wins election day gets a bigger tally for the absentees. It very rarely switches.
No, very rare, but it seemed to grow pretty from 5 to 50 or 45 or 50. I don't know how many absentees there were, though, so I'm not sure what was going on there.
180 or something. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so that's settled, and then now you have a 3-way race up in Troy for the mayor.
Which means that the Republican could, if the Democrats split the vote, then the Republican could walk in.
There's no doubt, and the Republican Jim Gordon in that race has got 4 lines that he's running on, so his name will appear 4 times on that ballot. So it's never dull in politics, as we know,
especially in Troy.
Yeah.
But getting your district, does it go down to Kinderhook?
It does. I represent Kinderhook, so Chris Gibson is a constituent of mine.
Well, not just Chris.
And John Fassler is a constituent of mine.
That's what I was wondering.
All of the good people.
You weren't invited as his assemblyman. You weren't invited to his announcement.
I was.
Oh,
I actually
were?
was. Yeah. I was invited. I got an email and I got a letter, and sure, I was invited.
Well,
and,
that was gracious of him.
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, there's no hard feelings between John and I. We had breakfast a couple of weeks ago. We talked about this, and we each have our reasons for why we want to run, and each of us thinks we're the best candidate to do it.
Okay.
I'm right. No, I mean, I mean, we're both passionate.
Right.
I think that John is very good on policy. He's very good on that. And I would give John the edge on fundraising. I would. I mean, he's been in the game 25 years or more, so he has deep roots. But along with those deep roots comes a tie to the establishment. And that's not a knock on John, it's just a fact, the way it is. And I think I've really established myself, even though I'm in office, I think I've clearly established myself as an anti-establishment type of candidate that will take on anybody on either side of the aisle when I think that they're doing the wrong thing. So,
now,
and John has his strengths as well.
And your strength, I mean, you come out of the banking industry.
I do. I have an MBA.
So you could certainly shake some of those trees and have some. I mean, you don't have to fundraise within your district. I mean, you have tentacles everywhere.
Yeah. And once we decide to launch, and you may see in the next short time frame, couple of weeks, you may see an exploratory committee formed, which will allow me to begin to raise some money, or at least begin to collect pledges from people. And if you want to test the waters out there and take people's temperature. Say, listen, can I count on you for X amount of dollars if I not? I'm not asking for it now, but can I count on you for a check in whatever amounts you're willing to give? So, that's where we're at with that. So, can I count on you for a check?
Yeah.
So, we will see going forward.
Mark's the fundraiser himself.
Yes, exactly. My heart's in it. I think that, this country's in trouble, and I think there's a reason why. As you look, a debate taking place tonight, well, who's really in the top tier of the Republican side of things right now? It's Donald Trump, It is
Ben Carson.
Carly Fiorina is rising rapidly.
Yeah. Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush is still there, and
Right.
so but of those
So
four,
I think Scott Walker is trending downward.
he is. But I would say Carson, Fiorina, and Trump
Yeah, right.
are trending upward. And what are they? They're outsiders. Same thing. Bernie Sanders is currently there, but he's sort of an anti-establishment guy
Absolutely.
as well. So I think what people are yearning for and what they're speaking in their voice right now is that. Well, I saw a poll the other day, it said 60% want an outsider. I don't think that mood is going to change between now and the presidential election. I just think Americans are really stressed and distressed a little bit about what's going on within their country. They feel uneasy about what's happening.
But it's also how you express yourself. And you know what? Donald Trump is speaking the way the average person speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Carson is not speaking the way the average person speaks, and he's so monotone and soft-spoken that you really doze off before he ends his sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame.
Yeah, he's a brilliant man, but his delivery is clearly different than Trump's. And you hit that right on the head. And what I say all the time to politicians is, you are not speaking to people that are politicians.
Right.
So don't speak to them as if they are. What people want is straight talk, and I think that's what I've offered up since I arrived on the scene in politics. I'm going to give it to you straight. It doesn't mean you have to agree with me, and that's perfectly okay that we don't agree on everything. You and I don't agree on every issue, but we get along just fine.
Yes.
And there's many issues that we do agree on. So I think this attitude that we've come to in America lately, where if you don't agree with me 100% of the time, then you're no good, and I'm going to try to crush you. We have to get away from that a little bit and start to say, okay, well, there's common ground here,
Right.
and there's a way forward, and that way forward clearly is by working together. So
I wanted to ask you about, we talked about John Faso already announcing his candidacy, and then there's another Assemblyman, Pete Lopez, who's a colleague of yours.
Yep.
He's from Schoharie, and he has, I think about 7 of the 10 counties that are in the district is
Right.
in his district. It really closely mirrors the congressional district.
Yeah.
So how do you see, if Pete Lopez throws his hat in the ring, do you see this, affecting your race and your decision?
Yeah, well, one thing I had said was that no matter my decision whether to run or not run is not based in any way with anybody that's in or not in a primary. That is not even a factor. So I'm not looking at it and saying, if so-and-so's in, I'm out. That doesn't have any bearing at all on what my decision
So
is.
Pete was saying on TV that he was saying that there was, that he mirrors Chris Gibson's persona a lot more than the other candidates who are or might be in the race. Do you agree with that?
I neither agree nor disagree. I mean, Pete's a friend and a good guy. I think that he does a good job for his constituents, as I do. Pete does love to say, well, I have 7 of the counties. That's true, but the reality is the reason there's 7 of them is there's not that much population out there. We all represent the same amount of constituents. As an assemblyman or a senator or congressman, we're all representing. The Assemblyman represents 130 or so thousand people, so it just takes 7 counties to get Pete to that 130. He's a good guy. He'll be a good candidate should he choose to run, and that will make for a very spirited type of campaign. But as I said earlier, I mean, the more crowded that is, I think the better it is.
Yeah, but
for
does
me.
it make it uncomfortable next session when the both of you are in the assembly minority, and you got to speak to each other and be friendly with each other or whatever?
I don't think so. I mean, I saw Pete Saturday night at a Columbia Green Sportsman's dinner. We shook hands, said hello. We're friends. We get along just fine. John Faso and I are friends. So there's no real animosity. I mean, certainly during a campaign, jabs are going to be thrown and points are going to be made. That's just part of politics.
Do you have your fundraisers at the Fort Orange Club?
I have had some.
Does John Faso get the room for you? Because he does for Pete.
He has gotten me the
Okay.
room in the
So
past. So it shows you that there's
Yeah.
some closeness there among all of us. So
Because he does it for Pete also.
Yeah, he's
and
done
I
it
was
for me.
like, they're going to run against each
Yeah.
other. I mean, and he's helping him raise money.
Yeah,
It's like-
well, that may change with a congressional primary here, but we'll see. Right now everybody's getting along just fine, and there may be as many as 5 people in this race.
So who else besides, let's say you, Faso, and Lopez? Who else?
So there's a gentleman named Andrew Haney who's down in the Dutchess County area. I think he's looking at running. He's formed a committee, so I certainly assume that he's going to announce. And then there's one other gentleman, I honestly don't know his name, but I've heard he's down in Ulster County. I think his first name is Dan, but I do not know his last name.
Right.
And everybody has issues as a candidate, and everybody has strengths, myself included.
Well,
so.
is the guy from Dutchess, is he, I heard that there was someone who's like a Republican version of Sean Eldridge, where he moved into the area, he's a Republican, maybe a rhino, a Republican in name only, his family's more Democratic. Who was that? Which one was that? Do you know?
Well, that could be both, actually.
It could be both.
Yeah, I mean, because the gentleman down in Ulster County, I think, got the microphone the other night at a dinner down there and said, I just moved into the district. I mean, one thing this district has shown is that they don't take well to carpetbagging.
Right.
So that may not bode well for either one. But you never know what candidates are going to come up with or what counterpoints or attacks are going to be made. But certainly somebody that has not lived in the district for any length of time is subject to those criticisms. Somebody that has lived in the district for less time than Sean Eldridge, and that was a clear point of contention among the voters last time, is that you just moved into this district, and by the way, it's your second or third vacation home. You're claiming that it's your primary residence, but let's face it, you just moved into the district to try to buy a seat. It didn't work, and people don't tend to, it doesn't tend to resonate very well with people.
So I'm going to ask a snarky question here.
Sure.
What don't you like about the Assembly minority that you want to get out of it and you want to move on to something else? Because
that's a good question, as only you would be able to phrase it. There's nothing that I don't like. I mean, I really enjoy doing my job at the Assembly. A friend of mine was in town last night. He's a Southwest Airlines pilot, and he and I were one number apart at U.S. Airways. So we got laid off. We got hired the same day, and we got laid off the same day. He's now over at Southwest. He's a captain. So he was in town on an overnight. We had dinner last night, and I said, let me show you the Capitol. He'd never seen it. He'd been in town a couple of times. So I took him on a tour, and he was amazed, of course, as everyone is. I mean, it's a beautiful building. I feel honored to go in that chamber. And if you don't feel that sense of awe, then it really is time to leave. But I feel honored to be in there. You walk in, and you're in a pretty historic room there when you think Teddy Roosevelt was in that room doing his job, and a lot of incredible people have been there. So I feel honored. There's nothing that I don't
And a lot
like.
of people have been taken out in handcuffs also.
Yeah, and that list keeps growing, unfortunately. We had one the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm honored to be there, love doing the job. But as you look at your career, per se, in politics, you say, well, what more can I do to serve the people? And clearly I'd be better off and be able to help my constituents in a better way being a member of Congress.
Now
You're able to cast a wider net.
You're 40 what?
No, I'm 51.
51?
51.
Okay.
So I know, thank you. I only look 40, but thank you.
I got it. That's in exchange for my snarky question.
Yes,
before.
there you go.
Okay. So but you're 51.
Yep.
So you're, So this is a ripe age for you to be, moving on and maybe doing something else. And I know Paul Tonko was in the Assembly, and he ran for the Mike McNulty seat, and he was 60 when he ran. I thought that was a bit much, a bit old, but I guess not.
He's out there every day.
Yeah,
He and Chris both run and run and run. And that was one of the conversations that I had was that, look, do you have the energy to run? I do. I clearly do. I don't ever stop. So I'm 7 days a week already. This is an absolutely huge district. It's, I think, bigger than 3 states. Certainly bigger than Rhode Island and Connecticut. And I think it's about the size of New Jersey. It's a massive district, and Chris does a phenomenal job.
Well, if you had to go from, let's say, the northern part of the district to Sullivan County, would you fly?
Yeah, I would like to.
No, there's Monticello Airport, the Resnick Airport in Ellenville, and
there may be times where I would fly if I had use of an airplane. A couple of friends of mine have airplanes,
right.
So you could see the flying congressman where I grab an airplane and zip down there. Sure, that could be a possibility.
One of the things that, Mark, maybe we could mention is, like, now you're in the minority in the Assembly and in Congress. Well, you never know what's going to
That's
happen,
right.
but right now it's in the majority.
Right.
So
Well, that
would
affords
be a
you.
big thing.
That does afford you some more ability to get some things done. Whereas in the minority, let's face it, the minorities are valuable. God forbid we ever have just one party of either side. That would not be good for democracy. So minorities play a role, but there's certainly some benefits to being in the majority. Let's face it, there just is. So, and as much honor as I feel going into the Assembly chamber, into that beautiful state capitol, I would feel incredibly honored to be a congressman as well.
Sure.
And going up to the rotunda and seeing how that, because only congressmen, there's a part in the rotunda that only congressmen can go up to.
Really, I didn't know that.
And they take their special guests. They have special guests, and they only get a few passes a year or something. It's there's a whole bunch of perks like that. Which,
and you're in historic territory.
Yeah,
I mean, when I got elected, Brian Colbert said, "Listen, you're one of only a few thousand. There hasn't been that many assemblymen. If you look through how many people there lived in New York since our founding, and how many have been assemblymen, it is an honor to be there. Which actually is why I get so irritated with people that break the law and go to prison. It's like they devalue and dishonor that institution."
So let me go over some of these issues that you were facing last term. First of all, you keep calling the governor cowardly Cuomo. Why do you do that?
No, because he is in very many issues. He doesn't take firm stands. I think he dodged on the Iran deal rather than take a stand. There's one example of it. And there's always this sort of he'll be a bully when he wants to be a bully, and then he runs and he is cowardly on a lot of other issues. I mean, today we're talking about he'll go out there and he'll beat on this supposed war on women and say women only make 84 cents on the dollar, but yet in his administration, women are underrepresented, first of all, numbers-wise in his administration, and they're only making 73 cents on the dollar. So, there's a more than a little hypocrisy there. So I call him out on those things. And and he comes out today and says, "I'm very proud on my administration's record dealing with women in his administration." Well, what are you proud of? You're claiming 84 cents is a war on women and they're underpaid, but you're paying 73 cents and you're proud of that. So I call him out on those issues, and I will continue to do so because let's face it, I'm no fan of this governor. I don't think he's representing all of New York. I think he's representing New York City. So as an upstate guy, I've had issues with that from the beginning. Well, really, the first 2 years, things were going pretty good, and we were getting along fine. But since that time, in my opinion, he's really gone off track. And I think that opinion is shared by an overwhelming majority of upstate New Yorkers.
And then you had some problem with the Adirondack Challenge. He has not made any public efforts to increase security for members of the New York's National Guard or military.
Well, I had an
He
issue.
talks about promoting the Adirondack Challenge.
Well, there were two separate issues there. But the Adirondack Challenge, I thought was a little. I said his Adirondack Challenge at that point was finding 2 escaped prisoners. That was this year's Adirondack Challenge, as we had 2 killers roaming around. But my issue with him on the National Guard, I mean, we're having guardsmen. I mean, there's almost like open assault now on the police. Another shooting yesterday, not here in New York, but. This lack of respect for the police and for our military is showing up. And when I see guardsmen getting shot and not carrying a firearm, I have a problem with that. And the governor is in charge of our National Guard here in the state. So I called on him to increase security, and he ignored that.
Our state militia is larger than most countries. I don't know how many people realize that. We have some phenomenal firepower that is second to none to the United States military. Right.
And the reality is when they're sitting in a recruiting station and they're not able to defend themselves, that is problematic for me. That they will defend this nation overseas or here at home, God forbid, if they had to. They should be able to protect themselves. So I called them out on that.
Even the recruiting station at Colony Center, you think should
absolutely
have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that there are some really bad people that want to do harm. Why would we not have a well-trained soldier able to protect himself with a sidearm? I mean, if you don't trust a soldier with a sidearm. Now, the argument is, well, we don't want them intervening in police matters. That's not a police matter if somebody's coming in to try to shoot you. That's not a police matter. That's a matter of life or death. So I think he needs to take a look at that, and I'll call him out. Just as I vocally called him out on the fact that with these Planned Parenthood videos that keep coming out, and there was another one yesterday, and they get more horrific, not only will he not comment on that, we are not inspecting abortion clinics in New York State in any way. Nail salons, pizza shops, barber salons get inspected more than our abortion clinics. Now, if you want to talk about protecting women, and this is not abortion or anti-abortion issue, this is just simply a health issue. How is it that we have abortion clinics that have not been inspected in a dozen years. That's unacceptable to me. So when I see issues like that, I have no problem calling out this governor. He doesn't like it much, but I don't work for this governor. I work for my constituents. I really don't care that he and I don't get along. That's never going to change. But I am going to continue to call him out when I think he's wrong. And on those issues, I am right, and he's not right for ignoring what I'm saying.
Well, it's interesting that you know, because again, your language is like a Donald Trump type of language as opposed to a Ben Carson language. You know, you speak the people's language. You don't just try to mince words or use code words and things like that.
It's just not my style.
You just don't call him stupid. I mean, you call him cowardly, but you don't call the governor stupid.
Well, no. I don't think he's stupid. I think he's cowardly, and I think he's a bully. But I don't think he's stupid. I think he's quite the opposite. I think he's very cunning. But it doesn't mean I agree with most of what he's doing. And you know, all I expect from anybody in office is just straight talk, tell the truth. I don't want to see this nuanced stuff, and that's what we get out of him. I mean, how do you not take a stand when we have the most, I think, I may be wrong on this, but don't we have more Jews in New York than in Israel?
Yes.
Right? How is it that you're the governor of the state with the highest number of Jewish people and you don't take a stand? You don't have
about the Iran nuclear deal.
About the Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah, because I asked him personally, I said, you know, what is your personal view on this? And he would never use the word I in his answer. He said, Senator Schumer got it right. You know, Senator Schumer, you know, it's about being verified, and if you can verify it, then yes. And I was waiting for him to say, yes, I would support it, but he wouldn't use the word I.
Yeah.
And he just said, and then yes.
Right.
And I'm waiting for him. I'm saying, let me pull the words off your tongue. You know, it's like, you want to say I would support it. I want you to say those words, you know, and he wouldn't say it. And I was just hoping that he would have used the, you know, the personal pronoun I to answer the question and not just say, oh, someone else got it right, I agree. You know, that's the right way to go. It has to be verified without saying I would support it.
Well, there you go. That sort of makes my point
Yeah.
about the fact that he won't give you a straight answer. And as I said earlier, look, you don't have to agree. You know, we don't have to agree on every issue, but there is no way that any politician doesn't have a position on that Iran deal, on that Iran nuclear deal. I think it's a horrendously bad deal. I can't imagine letting a regime like Iran self-certify basically what's going on. Why would you trust one of the biggest state sponsors of terrorism in the world? You have the Israeli prime minister, you have the Ayatollah in Iran saying Israel won't exist in 25 years. Where's the outrage from some of our politicians? I'm outraged by it. I think it's a horrendously bad deal, and there's no way that that should have gone forward. So, and by the way, I don't give Senator Gillibrand a pass either, because she said nothing about it either, and it's unacceptable. So that's just me. I mean, I'm more of a straight-talking guy. Some people like it, some people don't. But I usually find the people that don't like it wouldn't like it if I was completely quiet anyway. They're just not going to like who I am because of the political party I'm in.
Right.
But I do get a lot of people that say, I don't even agree with everything you're saying, but I know you're speaking from the heart and I can respect that. At the end of the day, that's all I can do is be who I am and be a straight talking guy. It doesn't mean I need to, you know, attack people all the time, even though I do go after the governor on occasion.
Right.
But I'm doing it in a factual way. I'm not making things up when we're going at it. Those are valid points that I'm making.
You know what? I wanted to bring up something. You said the Adirondack Challenge this year was finding the 2 escapees from Dannemora. You know what I was ironic was that you had all these troopers, you had all these people combing the area, and it was some schnooky police officer just happened to be driving down the road 1.5 miles to the Canadian border. And he
was a trooper.
And he saw the guy. I mean, he wasn't he wasn't part of that cadre.
Right.
He was just on his own,
and
he just happened to stumble upon him.
Right.
Yet with all the scientific expertise and all this planning and all that. We just happened to
Yeah, there was a
happened
little
upon
bit of
him.
luck involved
And,
for
and
sure.
I was like thinking, do we have the Keystone Cops here, or what's going on?
Well, it got awful interesting. Well, you talk about the Keystone Cops. Within an hour or two of the escape, or somewhere fairly shortly after the escape, there's the governor up there taking a tour of the escape route, walking through the tunnels. That is not the right approach when you have 2 killers on the loose. You don't go up there for a photo op. You want to go up there and have a press conference and say, we're going to find these guys? I applaud that. When you're taking selfies by the hole that they cut in the pipe, that's a problem for me. And what was happening there was that's an active crime scene at that point.
Yes.
And the governor's up there really interfering. And when he shows up, or any governor shows up, everything comes to a stop. You have to protect him.
Right.
You have to make sure he's catered to.
Right.
So that's just a distraction from the work at hand. Totally the wrong thing to do at that particular point.
Well, he wanted to show that he was interested enough to take, to crawl through the same tunnel that these escapees and to go by the manhole cover that they came out of, to show that, wow, this is, he was right there also.
Yeah.
But
plenty of time for that, but probably not within hours after they've,
go.
Escaped.
There you go.
We have more questions, or we're out of time?
I think we're out of time.
Out of time.
We'll
let
have you
Steve-
back.
Yeah, I
and
know.
we'll-
We'll have to ask you again.
Love
and
it.
we just want to give you a blessing for success in all your endeavors, wherever path that you choose to go in.
Thank you.
And should do it with good health.
And thank you, and happy Rosh Hashanah to everybody.
Thanks. Much
Thank you.
success to you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.